Welcome to Restore, a ministry dedicated to providing healing and restoration for individuals hurt by the church while standing against human trafficking. I'm Mama T, and I invite you to join me as we explore stories, share resources, and work toward a future of hope and healing. Welcome today. Welcome to Restore. I am Mama T, and I am so glad that you all have joined us on today. Welcome. Today, we have our very own Jamie Crone, who is a clinical social worker, as well as the founder and CEO of the Life Lesson Center, as well as Truly You Wellbeing. And we have a very interesting topic for everyone today. I think that so many people have been hurt by this saying, especially young ladies, and that is being called fast. Some people believe that girls are born that way. They're born fast. You just have some little fast girls who think they're grown. Well, that's what we're going to discuss today. Are little girls born fast? Are there just some girls out there that just want to be grown, think they're grown? Is that what's going on? So Jamie and I are going to discuss that today. So my first question to you, Jamie, is can you define, before we even get started, everybody, we need to know what's fast, because there are some people who will see this video and they just won't know what fast is. So can you please define the term fast?
Yes. And I would like to say, if I may, and this will show a little bit of what you can expect today. Mama T is my bestest friend. We've been friends for over 30 years. And it's so weird for her to call me Jamie. And I want her to call me Quisha.
All right. You all heard it. It's on record. She is Quisha is my for the rest of the night.
Quisha is my middle name. I'm not going to give you the backstory, but I am Quisha also, Jamie LaQuisha. She calls me Quisha. So we're going to go with that because I don't like the way Jamie rolls off your tongue.
Thank you. Thank you, Quisha.
You're welcome. Because I can tell you got to concentrate. You're like, Jamie. No, it's Quisha. It's Quisha. Okay, so your question, are you asking me, are girls born fast? Or what was that question? Where is it coming from?
What is fast? That's the first thing. Before we even talk about everything else, what is fast?
Okay, we know this is so subjective. However, where I'm from, how I was raised, fast means someone who is hot, promiscuous, unruly, overly sexual, lustful, freaky, something related to sexuality.
Yes. I know in some societies it's also called Lolita. There was a book called Lolita, and that was a girl who was sexualized at a very young age. So many people still call what we would call fast. In some circles, they would call it Lolita. But basically, a sexualized child that is sexualized before puberty, and even sometimes after puberty. But typically, when our society says fast, it's sexualizing a child or a child that is sexualized before puberty. So that's the definition.
Right. And let's not get it. Let's look at it this way too. We're all sexual beings. We are humans. Sexuality is a part of who we are. Obviously, we had sex because we're here. We're multiplying as humans. I think the problem is we've labeled it in a way where it's depending on someone's language, like it's unholy or it's dirty or it should be done in secret or it's like a means to an end, and it's not embraced as a healthy way of living. So when we put that on a child who is young and behaving in a developmentally appropriate way, if you just look at it from a human sexuality lens, even if that child is displaying some type of behavior, and we have to look at the behavior too, it's a normal part of development. So we already kind of skew it with, oh, you're overly sexualized. Well, let's look at what the age is, what the behavior is, and then have a conversation about that. Because there's something that we don't want to discuss or acknowledge, but young kids, and I have history in mental health consulting for preschool. It's not uncommon to see like a little 3 or 4-year-old masturbating, and it doesn't mean that they've been molested. It means that they're kind of exploring their body, and that's an opportunity for adults to step in and say, okay, let's make sure this is appropriate, and you aren't responding to some type of abuse, sexual abuse, and then let's kind of frame this for this child and use appropriate language, like it's okay to explore your body, you do it in this appropriate setting, and then have a conversation about no one ever touches you, that's inappropriate, then here are your safe people to talk to. So I want to just kind of throw that in there too, because we use certain language. I know it can be cultural or whatever, but it's already kind of skewed because we are kind of denaturing natural human sexuality. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
We
it
put
does.
certain labels on it.
So based on that, what do you think the psychological effects of being labeled in such a way, being that we are sexual beings and being that a child may masturbate because they're exploring their body and not necessarily because they've been touched? What are the psychological effects of being labeled?
So I think the psychological effects of being labeled like fast can create some confusion. It can create shame. And in those formative years, if you're starting to create shame around something that's natural, that's going to affect identity and self-worth and confusion. I mean, we all go through a certain, developmental age anyway, where we're trying to kind of like, embark on this self-discovery when we're in school age, for example, trying to figure out where we belong. And we're already creating hindrances to development because we're putting on a label to someone who really doesn't fully understand what it means. And we're putting responsibility on a child when that responsibility should really be on the adult to educate.
Now, based on that, putting the responsibility on children, do you think that's why victim blaming is so prevalent?
Because
they're
people don't
putting
like
that
personal.
responsibility.
Yeah, folks don't like personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Folks are going to look out. And first of all, I'll even say this: if somebody's calling a child fast, are they reflecting? Like, is there mirroring happening? Are they looking at this child and seeing themselves? And they're uncomfortable because they haven't done their own personal work and they haven't faced their own hurts. So now they see another child who's maybe behaving in a similar way, and then they put all of that from them, their lived experience, onto this child. And now what are they doing? They're creating a vicious cycle of maladaptive behaviors and trauma. Trauma is actually like your body's response to a stimuli, but I can just say trauma because everybody understands that. But now you're creating these generational patterns that are harmful. And then when folks catch a clue later on in their life, now they're trying to like break these patterns, and they have to go seek help, and it takes time, and it can happen. But if you think about the origin of it, and we always go back to these formative years, that's where it all started. That's where it started. The adults, and I'm not saying it's, everything's the adult's fault. I do recognize that adults hold heavy backpacks of what they've, whoever put into it at a young age, and they just kind of carried that through life. So then they start to share that burden unwittingly.
Yeah, I agree. So I wonder, I guess, based on that, have you heard of the story of the young lady who went missing? It was out of Detroit, and her aunt's boyfriend
impregnated her, and she's missing now. And so many people are just presuming that she's dead. Um, she was also accused of being fast. Many people, called her fast and stuff like that. And if I'm not mistaken, that she was only 13. He was 40. And I think that's where that victim blaming thing comes in. But can you just explain how the power dynamics play in cases like that in sexual abuse and exploitation?
Okay, so first of all, a child who has been sexually abused or raped is never, ever, ever that child's fault. Ever. Ever. Depending on the state, I know in Tennessee, I think it's like a 4-year gap. So if it's like, if you're 13 and then this person is 17, then that person can be convicted of like pedophilia or something, or child abuse. So you have to look at the age too, because depending on what state, for example, that could change. But I'm thinking about this website. I think it's called Stop It Now, and it's a resource for sexual abuse. And I'm going to make myself a note so that I can tell you for sure what it is. But
yeah, put it in
it kind of helps you understand curiosity related to sexual behavior, and then when it becomes abusive. So in the case that you're telling me about, you've got a kid who's 13, and then you have a grown person who's 40. That dynamic is already imbalanced because this is an adult and this is a child. And usually adults in a child's life are there to nurture and to protect and to educate and mentor and guide, not destroy boundaries, not, oh God, what's the word? Take advantage of, not abuse.
Exploit,
not exploit a child.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she gets pregnant. There are times, more than not, other adults know what's happening. And that's where the idea comes in of, what happened to me, at least, this isn't happening to you. So now there's this comparison. And again, there's a sense that I don't want to be responsible because I don't want to deal with my own stuff. And instead, I'm just going to blame you for what's happening to you instead of protecting you.
Right. Again, if you weren't being so fast and trying to be grown. But you know what? Little girls want to be like their moms, right? I mean,
until they get old enough and they say they don't.
Right. Right. But a lot of times, like when you see like 4, 5, 6, they're imitating the environment around them.
But they're sponges. They don't,
right.
Just like babies touch things and put things in their mouth. That's how they explore.
Right.
Their brains are developing at such a rapid age. So they're not necessarily listening to what you say. They're looking at your behavior and they're mimicking the behavior. So yeah.
And that brings me back to calling a little girl fast. If you are not liking the behavior of the little girl, you have to look around and say, okay, what am I doing? Is she, stop all that switching. Is she walking like me? Does she want to wear makeup like me? Is she conducting herself in a way that she's seen me conduct myself? It's kind of like a reflection. If you see that in your child, maybe we should do reflection. And as mothers, we have to reflect regularly. I would say daily, but we have to always reflect and just make sure that what we're doing is not having a negative impact on our children.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond that. It's everyone in that child's system. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the family system and you have siblings who are older, or you have, you're living in a multi-generational home, or you're spending a lot of time within the larger aspect of your family, who is influencing the child's behavior? It could be a cousin, It can be a sibling. It could be a friend, somebody at school. So they are absorbing behavior from everywhere in all of their environments. And eventually they create their own little belief system when they're about 12 or 13. And it's not just in the home, it's wherever they're exposed. What you watch on TV, that's influential. The music you listen to is influential. So it goes beyond the parent too. So if you see behavior and you don't even recognize it in yourself, start to look at who's in your child's environment, because they're picking it up from somewhere. It's not innate. They don't have a proclivity to this. This is something that they see, and now they are responding. They're mimicking.
Now, based on that, the kids always, picking up and being sponges and picking up things from everywhere. How can a community and a society, different schools in the church, how can we combat that harmful narrative?
I'm not going to say it's impossible unless you live in a closed group where everybody thinks alike and everybody's on the same page. That's the only way you can make that happen.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I would say having exposure to differing systems could be really beneficial, because it can shape a more accurate point of view of the world, like a more accurate representation of the world. But that's where I would put it back to the primary caretakers and the people in the home, in that environment. It is okay for you to say, it's okay for them to do it. That's not what we do at our house, in our home, right. Because that's your home is the child's first community. Yeah, that's their first community. That's where they learn their identity. They learn their roles, their responsibilities, how to engage with other people. I ask the parents not to get involved too much in sibling spats, but if it goes too far, you can intervene and bring them back to, here's how our family operates. Here's how we treat people. And your sister or your brother is a person. And this is how I expect you, because you're in this community, in our home, to behave.
Right. Including mine, children weren't allowed to fight. You have your disagreements, but we're not going to be fighting. We don't fight. We are family. Family doesn't fight. It's just what we don't do. Mm-hmm. So that's really good. Now, how do these labels intersect like different cultures? You talked about different people with different mindsets, and especially in today's society where children have access to different cultures, different parts of the world. How can these harmful labels intersect race, class, as well as gender identity?
As we live and breathe, it's there for all. It's like oxygen.
Yeah.
It's like oxygen. If you go to if you have a group of friends or just listen to other people talk, we speak English, we say oxygen. Somebody else might call it whatever it is in their language, but we're talking about the same thing. Mm-hmm. So with that, though, the belief surrounding it, some people don't really think about oxygen. Like, yeah, something you need, but you don't look at it as like something sacred that fills the lungs. Some people can take it as deep as they want to go. And some folks just kind of take it for granted. It depends on that belief system. Mm-hmm. Something that came to mind is there are some families who they consider themselves sex positive. Mm-hmm. And they want, and what that means is in what they deem appropriate, they are okay with their children being more fluid with their sexuality or how they portray themselves. They might be okay with their kids wearing really short skirts or really tight pants or low cut. And they see it as a way of building self-confidence and not holding on to these labels, like just being like fully embracing their body, fully embracing their sexuality within whatever limits they deem is appropriate. But like, we grew up, certain clothing wasn't acceptable. But I grew up in a religion where pants weren't acceptable, makeup wasn't acceptable, and then
Yeah.
other folks will be like, "What's wrong with it?" You know,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
So it changes, and it's hard to
Yeah.
judge other people for what they do because they're not like us.
They
And
are
it
not
doesn't
like us.
mean this doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It works for them. It just doesn't
Yeah.
work for you, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
we need to think about, are we causing harm to our kids? And then we need to define what is harm.
Mm-hmm.
What
So how
responsibility are we putting on our kids? And is it justified to put that responsibility on them?
how can we then teach our children to reject this victim blaming, um, and support survivors of abuse? So many times we have, um, society or someone would accuse someone of touching them, and everyone would attack the accuser, the person that's accusing them, saying, "Hey, this person touched me." Now, yes, we've had, stories in the past of people who falsely accuse young men, in particular, of of certain things, of attacking them when they really didn't, and these people had their lives turned upside down, and they ended up in jail for many years. So, based on that fact, how can we not victim blame? You know what I mean? It's kind of, you're kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place, because there are people out there that are lying and falsely
Mhm.
accusing, but then there are so many more that are actually telling the truth. So how do we walk that line of not victim blaming, but being skeptical?
I think it's a healthy sense of awareness is necessary. If we go back to the home, we got to have a conversation with our kids about what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, related to touch, related to how we're treated, and then that needs to be modeled. Um, if it's not really modeled at home, where is it going to be modeled? Are they in organizations where it's modeled, where they are encouraging self-confidence, where they are encouraging having really open conversations about what's happening? Because people have really different reasons for being deceitful. Sometimes I would say sometimes that deceit is because they were taught to be deceitful, and we don't think about how we teach our kids to lie, and then we get so mad at them when they do. We teach our kids to lie by saying, don't tell so and so the food's bad. Say it's good. That's a lie. If the food is
Yeah,
bad, if they think it's bad, that's a lie.
yeah,
We
yeah.
teach kids how to invalidate ourselves. Oh, you're crying. Nothing's wrong with you. We're invalidating. They're crying. They're crying for a reason. So they learn how to survive and get their needs met in a misdirected way because we don't fully accept what they are authentically trying to show them or express to them. And it builds up in very little ways, but we're not paying attention to what message are we sending. What are we actually teaching our kids? Instead of don't say the food's nasty, just say it's good, which is a lie. How about you just don't say anything?
Or
Or
say
just
thank
say,
you.
or just say thank you. Oh, how's the food?
I really appreciate the
It's,
effort.
there you go. There you
I've
go.
had
Right.
practice.
There you go. Yes. Or I'm getting full. Like, is it feel it's
Yeah,
hot? you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's hot. It's got some flavors. It doesn't mean it's the flavors you like, but it's got some
yeah,
flavors.
yeah. The flavors are flavoring.
Or depending on who you're talking to, they might appreciate you saying, I don't like it. They might want the feedback. So it's the relationship too. But
Yeah.
if the child is so young, an adult needs to be there to help translate.
Okay, that's true.
A trusted adult.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
that does answer my question. I
Okay.
appreciate it. So now we're coming to close to an end. what steps can listeners take to actively combat victim shaming and support survivors in their own community?
If someone is suffering, even if they're not being truly honest, and we don't know that, we need to at least allow them to express what they're experiencing and hold it and share compassion and empathy and grace to them until whoever the authorities are, do an investigation or whatever. But for you as a person, if someone says something's happened to them, what's it going to take from you to share a space of grace and compassion for them? So try not to be suspicious, because those are your own belief systems. Maybe that's something that's in your backpack. Maybe you were called fast growing up and it strikes a nerve in you. So then you want to be suspicious of this person. For what? Maybe you can show them and give them what you weren't given. And that's how you can break a pattern. That's how you can break a cycle. You respond differently this time to someone who says they've been hurt. All you have to do is just connect with them and say, I'm sorry that happened to you, because something's happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry that you had to experience that. Because if they are going through the motions of maybe lying about it, something's happened that has caused them to create that desire to be deceitful in that moment. Probably safety. It's probably super old too. Yeah. But if someone, and it's legit, and they really have been through something, they're talk to them on a one-to-one basis if you can. If you don't know them personally, just offer that extension of grace and compassion. But if you know them personally, ask them what they need from you. Ask what you can do for them. Maybe they want to just tell their story and you just sit and listen to it because they don't feel heard. Maybe they want to pull from this inner strength and you want to keep them in victimhood. And maybe they want to move on from it. And if they're saying, you know what, I really just want to move past it. They might not be avoiding it. Maybe they are pulling some inner strength and they really do want to move past it. And then ask them how you can help them do that. And if there are moments where they look down or they want to talk about it, sit with them and just listen and hold that space with them. It's not your job to fix anything. So the first thing I would ask you to do is try to connect with the person personally if you can. But if not, offer compassion. It doesn't take anything from you to send somebody blessings.
Okay. Thank you for that. And finally, what would you say to someone who has been labeled fast? What would you say if there was a little girl standing in front of you right now who has been called fast? What would you say to her?
I would ask, what does that mean to you? And then based on what she tells me, I would go a little bit. Well, see, I'm a therapist though, so I'm gonna,
and that's the reason why we're asking.
Yeah, automatically go deep. But if she's, I'm looking at her, and if she's like, so and so called me fast, I would say, what's that mean to you? Well, it means this and that. And then I would ask, well, who told you that? And do you believe that about yourself? And then if she says no, I would ask her, what do you believe about yourself? What do you like about yourself? Or what do your friends tell you about yourself? My friends say that I'm this and that and this and that. Well, do you feel that's who you are? Well, that's who you are. So are you really fast then? Or is that somebody else telling you that? Because you can't believe everything somebody tells you about who you are.
Right. You tell people who you are. All right. I like that. Well, thank you so much for that. If you have enjoyed what Jamie Crone has said, then please feel free to have a check out her website at thelifelessonscenter.com or trulyyouwellbeing.com. And again, thank you so much, Jamie, for your insight on today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a part of Restore today. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, share, and help spread awareness of the message of healing and awareness. Remember Isaiah 61:1 as we continue to restore hope and freedom in the lives of those who need it the most. Together, we can make a difference, one story, one life, and one step at a time. Until next time, may God's peace and restoration be with you.